There it is. Good morning and afternoon. Keep in mind it's 2 o'clock for our folks on the East Coast.
There you go.
Barely still morning here on the West Coast. Uh, Thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to let folks get settled in. Bassam, how was your long weekend? Some of us had holidays on a Wednesday,
In
on Monday.
Canada
Some
and the
did
US,
not.
it was actually I enjoyed it with the family, but there's like a massive, just for everybody that's on this webinar, there is a massive windstorm occurring where me and Ellis are. So if we get blown away or something goes off of the power, forgive us, but it looks like a tornado out there right now.
Yeah, in California, when the wind gets so bad, it frequently will shut the power off.
Yes,
Intentionally.
This is a challenge. This is a challenge
to prevent fires. So that is a challenge indeed.
All right.
Well, great. Well, listen, we're going to let folks who are filtering in. We're so excited that you're here with us today. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. We are talking today, Bassam, arguably about one of the most important elements of construction, and that is money. What makes it so hard? And what is our thesis on how it can be done better and smarter? So we're joined by Bassam Hamdi, the CEO and co-founder, to walk us through the tools, the technology, most importantly, the mindset that the industry needs to get us there. So Bassam, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ellis. And thanks for everybody that's logging in. This is already one of our most well-attended webinars. So thank you, everyone that's logging in and checking us out.
Absolutely. So for the next 20 minutes, Bassam's going to walk us through the state of the money workflow in construction and the future of it. And before you jump in, Bassam, a few notes here. We're going to have a few minutes at the end for questions, and we can take them on the fly as well. I think that's always good to keep things interactive. So in our live stream platform, there's a chat window. Feel free to throw in questions as they come up. Also, at the end, there's a couple of polls that we have to ask you folks, get your feedback on the topics we discussed today. And of course, as always, this is being recorded. So if you want to use this to reference again or share with your colleagues, which we highly encourage, you're welcome to do so as well.
We'll keep the swearing at a minimum, I promise.
At the minimum, please. We have a swear jar off to the side here. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Ellis. And, let's just talk a little bit about what we're going to cover. I don't think we need to belabor the first bullet point, Ellis, the complexity of construction and challenging finances. Right now, we all know that this is a problem. I hate the fact that the New York Times wrote yet another article regarding productivity in construction going down. I think there's a lot of story there. I think construction is one of the hardest working industries in the world, but it is getting harder. And then talking about, everybody asks, like, what does brick really do? When we talk about what brick does, we actually, it's financial automation. It's the idea that we take this human capital intensive work and automate it. And I'm going to go through that. And then I'm going to give you some takeaways. It's how do you evolve and change and become an agile organization that's taking advantage of these opportunities? How do you become a more automated business so you're more productive, so you make more money? And then ultimately, I'll share some real world examples out from the world to say, hey, this is possible. So when you think about where the complexities lie, and I think Ellis and I have been doing this almost 5 years together. I don't know, this is our 100th webinar, God knows how many we've done. But the idea here is that 5 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago, it seems to be a very, very coherent, consistent problem. Jobs are getting harder, owners are getting smarter, your accounting system's too old, labor is too hard to get, and supply chain is challenging. I could have ran the slide in the 90s, in the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s and still have this story. The idea that we need to digitally transform how we run the financial workflows for a company, that's no longer a dream. This is a requirement. And when you think about digital transformation in construction, when you think about where did digital transformation even begin in construction, I'm going to go through a couple of great companies. Autodesk, fabulous company in the 90s. They came out and they digitized the design workflow. Think about it, pre-Autodesk, you had a piece of paper, a drafting board, pen, pencils, rulers. They would put them in cylinders and ship them. That's how the design workflow worked. It would be insane today to do that now. How do we do it? We digitize it. Autodesk, 2D, eventually 3D. That's the first real digital transformation, I think, that Ellis, and we can talk a little bit more about this, but I really think that started the domino effect of digital transformation. In the 10s, I take some responsibility for this. Procore digitized Post-it notes and pieces of paper that were in the trailer that we used to fax and email and write on triplicate, literally write on triplicate. That would be crazy. In the 10s, Procore owned that digital transformation with a few other companies. And finally, the 20s are all about money. Ultimately, Brick is digitizing the money workflow. That's the idea. All of the workflows that start with a dollar sign, anything that you have to do, whether you're budgeting it, forecasting, reforecasting, spending it, receiving it, or paying it, that needs to be automated in some shape or form. You can't just throw bodies at it anymore. And I think with the 300 plus clients we have, we're owning that digital transformation wave. And how we do it, just to understand how Brick digitally transforms the money workflow, is we've invented a technology. I hate the word platform because it doesn't really mean anything. We invented an automation technology unique specifically for construction. I'm going to give you a way back playback. So this is my third act in construction technology. I've been in construction tech for 23 years. This idea germinated in 1999 when I was embedded with some very large general contractors, and they were doing things in systems like financial forecasting, like accounts payable automation, like billing automation, that were homegrown or driven out of Excel. And I said, I'm a smart guy. I'm going to take over product at the first company, and we're going to build that workflow engine. Never happened. That first company just became a great accounting system. Could never drive financial workflow. Go to the next company. Y'all know which the next company is. I say, yeah, I'm going to get CFOs to run this software, project management software. Nope, never happened. So that's where the thesis of Brick was born. That's where the brain of Brick, the technology of Brick was born, is the idea that there's an alchemy and a science to construction financial. That means that there is actually different as human DNA to go from one company to the next company to really, really drive how financial workflows work. Think about it. Each company is unique. Different percentages of self-performed labor, general conditions versus non-general conditions, how you deal with subcontractors, all of that results in a requirement for personalization of this automation platform. Brick is blank until you automate it, until you implement it. Brick is fully personalized. It is a blank slate until you implement it. It's also the most connected construction technology solution out there. It's connected to all of your systems. We've not met a system we can't connect to. It is the ability to bring in data from third parties, whether it's your project management system, whether it's your accounting system, whether it's another financial system, whether it's a system somebody else even owns, like the GC or owner that you need data out of. It's the pieces of the puzzle that are then put together using Brick. It's also the most collaborative system. This technology allows the CFO, the controller, the accounting manager, the project manager, project executive, operations. Think of this as your bank account because it's running your real financial cash flow. And it produces accurate and more timely results. It takes things that used to be twice a year to weekly. You can see some of those great case studies. So this technology is an automation engine that takes heavy human capital, manually intensive work, and streamlines it. And where do we automate? Well, Brick is focused on automating the forecasting process. This was the first area that we focused on. Forecasting at the project level, at a company or corporate level, revenue forecasting, tying in backlog opportunities, producing automations and intelligence for all stakeholders, whether it's your owner, whether it's the president of the company, whether it's your banks or sureties. That was the first area we automated. The next area we automated was spending. And why did we choose spend management as the next area to automate? It's actually an early on story. We're sitting in a room with a CFO, and it's the early days of Brick. So I was there on the implementation, and they had a financial forecast on the screen, and it had this spent to date column. And the CFO stood up and pointed at the spent to date column and said, that number's probably wrong. And we're like, well, why is it wrong? Where are we getting the data from? And the gentleman said, that data, that spend number is in the trailer, it's in the glove box of somebody's pickup truck, it's in somebody's backpack, it's in somebody's back pocket, it's on a credit card statement. I don't know how much we spent. So you know what? We've taken that workflow and truncated it from 6 to 8 weeks to get an AP invoice or a credit card statement showing up on a job cost report down to less than 5 minutes. 6 to 8 weeks to minutes. That is game changing when you want to bill it, when you want to recognize it, when you want to really know your financial position. And then the most logical next step for us is automation of the billing process. You might be forced to use Texture or GC Pay. You might have an owner with a very complex billing system that you have to enter in, but we're there to automate everything around it from contract to collections. These are the 3 core areas we're focused on. And why these 3 core areas? So we're a 5-year-old company now, believe it or not. It's insane. It feels like just yesterday when this company started, but we now have proof in the pudding of ROI, first year return, $84,000, 200% based on our current average selling price. Don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of our clients. That's a great thing to talk about. The idea here is that we optimize resources and we save overhead and headcount. Most people can't hire enough AR, AP clerks or accounting managers. So there's never a problem saying, hey, look, the 2 people that left during COVID, hey, they're not coming back. We're going to save that money. But the next level is scaling and planning your business better. When you know when the next job is starting, when you know your general conditions monitoring, when you know your financial forecast, you are running a better business. And when you run a better business, you stop the erosion and you enhance profit margin. Those are the 3 pillars of our return on investment. Stop the erosion, scale your business, and save money on overhead. That's as simple as I can put it. And let's be honest, this is what most companies look like before Brick. It's a ragtag of systems they bought on the left-hand side and a bunch of workflows on the right-hand side and no straight line between any of them. There's a lot of Excel. 85 to 90% of our clients are using Excel or homegrown systems, SharePoint, Power Apps, and other things that they have to, a construction company is not a software company, but they got to pretend to be a software company in order to run these processes. So this is an example of one of our clients that was running Excel and actually in this case, Microsoft Access. They had to upgrade because the Microsoft Access version wouldn't run on the new version of Windows. So like, what are we going to do? Ultimately, what Brick did is change it so that it is a streamlined process through the Brick system. So let's talk about pre-Brick. The CFO would log in once a month, download reams and reams and reams of data, thousands of lines, thousands of transactions, and Control C and Control V into dozens of Excel spreadsheets with massive macros. And then they would email each spreadsheet to an individual project manager. PM would go in, maybe they wouldn't, they would add rows, columns, and they'd break the spreadsheet half the time. And then half of them would email them back, the other half would just delete the email. The CFO is then left to glue these spreadsheets back together so that they can create financial statements, so that they can create cash flow reports, so they can know what their business is actually doing. 60 to 90 day process to go from sending out or downloading last month's transaction to getting a financial position for your company. 60 to 90 days. How valuable is a cash flow report, Ellis, 60 to 90 days after the fact? Not very.
Too late. Too late. Especially if you're paying payroll once a week.
Absolutely. And there, here's the situation now. They're under 5 days for month closeout. Press one button. The system does the work on their behalf. It augments the experience. We'll talk about that with the project managers, project engineers. It brings the data back. No human has to do those unnecessary tasks. That's just done for them. 60 days, closing out, May in August no longer happens. You're closing out May in the first week of June. That's crazy. And this is what the problems that our clients no longer have to ask. These are questions we don't need them to wonder about. What will my fee be at closeout? Why is that a mystery in construction in 2023? Are my general conditions on track on this project, across all projects? Do I have enough general conditions for future projects? Am I cash flow forecasting correctly? Is there something I'm missing? Is there a big surprise at the end of the rainbow? Am I missing anything from my revenue recognition or my WIP calculation? What is my labor, material, and equipment utilization? Is it fully utilized? Am I maximizing my supply chain? If I'm a contractor, maybe I want to know, is this owner or general contractor, if I'm a sub, profitable? Should I be firing that owner? Should I be pursuing the next project? What is my backlog forecast? What is my revenue forecast? Is it including everything? These are massive questions that in construction, we can't afford not to have the answers at our fingertips in real time. And how do you get there? And I'll take a pause there. I think there is a couple of questions, but I'm going to try to get there. How do you get there is through automation. And it is a potentially scary word. Look, another New York Times article that came out, it's a funny article. It said, the robots are coming for Fred in accounting. The idea here is that there is an automation revolution that's happening in many, many other industries. It's not a fluke that many of these other industries that are using automation platforms like Brick are actually more efficient. So what is automation? Well, automation are little computer programs that do repetitive tasks on behalf of humans. It's that simple. It's a data entry clerk that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never calls in sick, just continues to run and does the same repetitive task over and over and over again. Remember that concept of downloading data, uploading it, formatting it? A computer can do all of that without a human ever touching it. So that is what automation at its core is, a little program that does repetitive tasks on behalf of humans. Robots are scary. I hate the term robots, but that's what we're going to use. They don't want to take your job.
No, we say microchips will not replace relationships. That's the I like to use.
I like that. The idea is that they're not taking anybody's job. They're enhancing the job. So you don't have to do work that is inhuman. Doing double data entry is inhumane. You have to stop that. And ultimately, it's going to improve business outcomes for your company. So how do you get there? There's an awesome book I highly recommend. It's called The Adaptation Advantage. It itemizes these 3 bullet points: automation, and augmentation. That big gnarly workflow of project forecasting to revenue recognition, from revenue forecasting to cash flow planning, from general conditions monitoring and labor forecasting to headcount planning and hiring plans. Those are big, gnarly, thought-provoking workflows. Atomization means you're ripping those apart. You're breaking them to the components that are more manageable. Take those big, gnarly workflows, break them down. That's the first step on a cultural movement towards automation. Break down big workflows into smaller, atomize it. The next is take the individual tasks and decide which ones should be done by a machine. Brick will help you there. If you're a Brick client, we'll tell you which items with our over 300 clients have been automated best for individual companies, whether they be subcontractors or GCs. Automate the task a computer can do better. Remember, repetitive tasks. And then augment the experience for the end user so that they have the right information at the right time to make the right decision. Atomize, break down a big workflow, make it smaller. Automate the task a human does not have to do anymore, and then augment the experience for an end user, like a project manager. Provide them the right change order amount, the right spend amount, provide them the right billing amount in real time so they can make better decisions. Forget about doing this once a month. That is not even, 5-day close is great. I want something called a continuous close. When you do this right, you can know your financial position every hour on every day in order to run your better business. So atomize, break it down in small pieces, automate the tasks that can be done by a machine, augment so a human can do their job better. Does that make sense, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I mean, with some of the, and you were talking about the ROI on this, if you talk to some of our current clients, we'll go through this exercise, and in some cases we'll get a workflow that's 50 steps from soup to nuts.
Absolutely.
And then you go through that work and say, hey, what can we get rid of? What can we automate? At the end of that process, you're looking at, somewhere about 10 steps, 5 to 10 steps. That's
100%.
that's what, in the real world, ROI on this actually looks like.
Yep. Taking something that is that gnarly and breaking it down to small little pieces. Yeah. Awesome. So let me go to the next slide. Went through this. Now I want to ask, we're going to do a little bit of a poll. On a scale to 1 to 5, how automated is your project to WIP process? Project forecasting to revenue recognition. And let me give you kind of an idea. On the 1 scale, we're using Excel, we're using double data entry, we're using Microsoft Access a little bit. It's all messy, it's all macros, it's all manual. On the 5, no human has to set anything up. On the last day of the month, it magically shows up in somebody's inbox. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how automated is project forecasting to WIP? The next question will be the AP process, but let's go.
And on the project forecasting to WIP, we see a lot of clients start with this. And again, the money workflow is really big, as we've discussed. There's a lot of places you can start with. If you're using Brick to attack the money workflow, a lot of places to go. We do find that project forecasting WIP is right out of the gate, typically, the quickest, fastest ROI.
Yeah, and what's funny about this, Ellis, is like I'm partially responsible for this. So I've helped develop 2 good systems, one an accounting system, one a project management system. And in both cases, they have forecasting screens. And we've set up the battle royale between accounting and operations where you do forecast. And you know what happens? They do it in Excel, and they do double data entry into their PM system, and they do double data entry into their ERP. Right now, just kind of as expected, we're about 40% of the folks on this call are not at the 1 level. 40%. When you look at this call, over 75% of this call is moderately or only slightly automated or not automated at all. Let's move on to accounts payable. Let's talk about it. You get an invoice in your office. Does it automatically show up in a project manager's hand asking for a cost code and then gets approved and paid without a human ever touching it? That's 5. 1 is I'm still scanning invoices in the copier room like it's 1983. That's 1. Let's keep that up.
Yeah, the AP process is another one where, and again, the real value in this is that you can use this technology, the big brain, to chain a lot of these workflows together, right? So looking at the big bad monster, it's a lot to take on. We say, hey, let's start with AP, right? And then AP chains into your cost to complete. Helps you understand maybe you can bill faster because you're processing invoices faster. Get that into your WIP. Get that into your revenue forecast. Building out a cash flow forecast. So you can see how you can start to chain these things together. Like, I don't know, what's a board game? It's like like a checkers.
Connect the dots. It's connect the dots. Everything is connected. That's the money workflow. Everything's connected, whether you're budgeting it, receiving it, or spending it. Absolutely. This is even starker, Ellis. I don't know if you can see the results.
Yes.
47% of folks on this call not automated at all in the AP process. That is, and we'll share these results after the webinar. Automation of your month-end close. That means it's a little bit more, CFO oriented, right? It's more around the CFO closing out the month, collaborating with the right stakeholders, posting the right closing balances, making sure that everything is done without Excel. We actually find this in some cases, the first place, we talk about project forecasting to WIP. A lot of folks that are just buying us as the office of the CFO engine are starting here because this is immediate dividends. I call it return on lifestyle. It's it's an ROL. It's a return on your lifestyle because CFOs at the end of every month, and this is pretty indicative of what's happened, about 70% not automated at all for month-end close. 70%, 71 now. And then if you add slightly automated, you're at 86%. Wow. That's crazy. Month-end close is a good place to start because it doesn't affect or impact every other department. So it's maybe a little bit easier to get started.
Yeah.
And then finally, accounts receivable. I have a good friend in construction, and he said, I'll hire as many AR clerks as I can, billing people as I can, because my God, I can't keep up with all these custom formats from my owner, these texturas, GC Pay, bill, all of these crazy solutions that are making you bill in their system. That is, from my perspective, a real low-hanging fruit for us. Again, entirely automated would be somebody can go in, press a button, instantly print a G702, G703, and send it to the client. That's the world we want to be in. We're seeing a little bit more automation here. It's good to see more people on the slightly automated versus not automated at all. I think this is the first one, Alice, where slightly automated is around 67%. So, and we'll leave these polls up. You can vote on as you go through. And I think just one thing, we only have a couple minutes left, but one thing I just want to close with is a concept of how you get there and something to think about when you take this away. Every company has two parts to them. There's the culture, which is the heart of the company, and the capacity, which is the brain. That has to stay in balance. That's one of the biggest things when you talk about automation, that you don't want to turn your company into a robot. If you're all brain and no heart, your company is going to be a fail. It's not going to work out. And if you're all heart and no brain, it's not going to work out either. What automation does is it removes the human elements. It enhances it. And I just want everybody to think through that. It's that, how can I get there? How do I get started? It's by putting into balance your heart and your brain as a company and getting the best out of your employees so you can run that better business. And with that, I'll leave it for the 1 minute we have left for questions.
Well, as you get your questions into the chat, Bassam, there's always the one that likes, you're bought in, right? You're the CFO. How do you recommend talking to your team, maybe in operations, someone that's, not living in the financials on a day-to-day basis? Yeah. Talk about this with other folks in the business.
I think the first thing, there's a reason why I don't call them accounting workflows. I call them money workflows. And the way you make it not, I love that line where I'll walk into a trailer and they're like, that accounting department makes me enter in all this data. And it's like, you're not entering data for them. You're entering data so the business can run, right? So we have to turn the conversation between operations, IT, and accounting from this to this. This is how we move forward. We're going to move forward together. It's not about accounting. It's not about project managers. It's not about computers. It's about making sure you have the right amount of money, the right profit, the right number of heads. That is not an accounting problem. That is an everyone in your business problem. And that's really, when you think about it, the great construction companies die through lack of cash flow and unforeseen financial events. That's where companies die. So it's that stark. Use the conversation about the money workflow versus it being an accounting workflow. I think that's the best way to answer that.
Yeah. And one more question I've got that I know we get quite a bit. I think it's a great one to talk through, and we have some folks typing in. Let's say you have a project going in with analytics, right? Dashboarding project or some sort to really try to understand, what's happening in the business. Talk us through the difference between kind of a dashboard versus automation of the money workflow.
Yeah, a dashboard is a report. It's very two-dimensional, and it isn't a workflow engine. You can't do data entry into a dashboard. Brick has lots and lots of dashboards. Every system you buy are going to have lots and lots of dashboards. Quite frankly, charts, pie charts, graphs, all of those things, that's a great way, it's a sexy way to show your software. But the reality is the workflow behind it needs to be tight, because a dashboard with no tight playbook is garbage in, garbage out. I talk about, Andy Reid basically running the Chiefs, and he didn't have a playbook. How would that even work? It would look like when my 9-year-old is, playing football. It's just all the kids run in one area. The idea that we have a playbook is why this works for us, is that a dashboard will be more accurate. And I think that's the key there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Bassam, we must have knocked it out of the park. Questions, I think questions have all been answered. So that's great to see. Look, we know it, you know, this is a lot to pack in 30 minutes, but hopefully everyone here got a sense of, you know, what do we mean by money workflow? What do we mean by automation? What do we mean by enhancing fee, freezing overhead, and enhancing fee, stopping fee erosion, and freezing overhead. So listen, we're really grateful for your time today. Thankful for everyone to join us today. You're probably speaking to someone at Brick. Please reach out if you have any more questions or want to dive a bit more deeper. We're happy to help out.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.